fights the champion of light. Where hope seems lost, there rides the rebellion. Together they stand ready against the dark, evil warriors of the Horde and their leader, the terrible Hordak. The rebellion, armed with hope and ancient powers against the force of an intergalactic army. This is the story of one who will become leader of the Great Rebellion. She-Ra, Princess of Power.
Hello, this is TFG1Mike, and welcome to the 47th chapter in the Powers of Grayskull Series. This will be kicking off our She-Ra podcast, Myths of Etheria proper. For me with this journey into the Masters of the Universe franchise is none other than OptimusSolo himself. Are you ready for the Powers of Grayskull, Faker?
The one and only OptimusSolo. No. I'm always ready for more He-Man
Faker.
Talk. Always Faker. Ready for more He-Man talk.
Okay, so a lot has happened since we recorded the Secret of the Sword commentary last episode in episode 46. The biggest thing that has happened since then, two biggest things that have happened since then, La La Land Records released their 2 CD set of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe soundtrack, which has 130 tracks on it, I think. I don't even remember. No, it has 58. I don't know. But it's 2 full discs of music from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And I had interviewed John Takas, who is one of the producers on the disc. Which you guys have probably already heard of by now. I'm so glad they released that. I'm waiting for them to release a She-Ra version of, 2 CD set of She-Ra, because, man, if I could have some of the music that's in She-Ra, like specifically the instrumental version of I Have the Power, that would just be awesome. So that happened. More recently, what happened was... you heard, and I don't know if you've seen it, but you've heard of that Turtle Power documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently the same people are doing Power of Grayskull documentary on He-Man.
Nice.
So, press release, Power of Grayskull, the definitive history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. As I just said, people who brought you Turtle Power and Nintendo Quest joined forces to bring you the most epic tale in the universe. Pop culture-focused filmmakers team up to bring fans Power of Grayskull, the definitive history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Let's see. So, forces. Randall Lobb, writer, director, producer of Turtle Power, definitive history of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Rob McCollum, writer, director of Nintendo Quest, the most unofficial and unauthorized Nintendo documentary ever, once again put their pop culture fandom on film with a deep dive into the history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Power of Grayskull, the latest in Fox Pop Media's definitive film series, will dig into the rich history of what has become one of the most beloved and enduring pop culture icons for millions of fans worldwide. From concept to comic book, cartoons, movies, and beyond, the enormous popularity of Masters of the Universe has spawned legions of loyal fans who have turned the cosmically powered barbarian into an industry. Decades after its creation, Motu is still going strong, a franchise rich in collectibles, conferences, and more importantly, universal themes that still resonate with audiences after all these years. So I will leave a link to this full-on press release in the in the show notes for this episode. That's what's kind of going on in the world of Masters of the Universe. There's still no real news about the movie, sadly.
Except for that, if you listen to the Cinema Geeks, you will know that the fans have voted my casting of Masters of the Universe. They voted for it. So 84% or 86% of people in favor for my Masters of the Universe cast.
We do not need Thor as He-Man.
Perfect casting.
No.
You're the only one that thinks that.
Ever. Yeah, probably. So in this episode of Myths of Etheria, we'll be giving you an in-depth history lesson on the differences in what it took to make the Sword of She-Ra, the 5-part episodic intro to the Princess of Power animated series. So we hope you're ready, because it's time to enter Etheria. All right, folks. So last time around, Kevin and I did the commentary on Secret of the Sword, which is the film version, which is the, I don't want to say cobbled together, but it really does feel like when they made the cuts to make the movie version that it kind of was just jumbled all together.
Yeah, I can see that take.
I don't know. I don't know. The reason why we aren't redoing the commentary, obviously. We aren't rediscussing the individual episodes that made up the movie. What we're doing here is looking at what it took them to get to the final production of the movie, because some people don't even know that it was a movie version. Some people just assume it was the 5 episodes that aired on television. And the first 3 episodes are completely different as far as their intro and closing.
Right.
And the reason why that was because at the time they wanted, I guess, Filmation or Larry DiTilio or whoever, Lou Scheimer, whatever, wanted to protect the identity of who She-Ra really was. So no one really knew. So as you all heard in the very beginning of this podcast, this is the only episode 47 of Powers of Grayskull is the only time you will ever hear that very rare. Some places say it's Lou Scheimer doing the narration. Other places say it's Alan Oppenheimer. I don't know. Could you tell?
I'd have to listen to it again after listening to a couple of voice clips from each one of them.
Okay. It's opening narration from either Lou or Alan. And I believe it is Alan, just from my memory and watching, because I just watched it right before we did this, so you'd think I'd remember, but then again, I'm old.
You are pretty old.
Yeah, so are you. You're getting there.
Slowly.
Yeah. So what interests me is how some people saw this on TV and not the movie version, because the movie version was all I remembered.
Yeah, I don't remember the episodic versions either. I only remember the movie.
I mean,
But that goes back to something I said in the last episode as well, which is I'm probably not going to have actual memories of any of the She-Ra episodes. I'm going to remember characters and stuff like that,
yeah.
But I'm not going to remember actual episodes because I didn't watch She-Ra Die Hard style when I was a kid. Yeah. I watched it when my sister was watching it. I watched it when it came on, but at this point, I was moving into other boys' cartoons that were out, and
Thundercats and Silverhawks,
right, and all the reruns of Transformers and G.I. Joe, etc.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wasn't watching the episodes, so it's going to be very rare, if ever, if I remember an actual episode. But I do, however, specifically remember the film version.
See, here's the thing, folks, and I've just found this out recently since I've moved to a new apartment and everything else. So, also, if you hear my voice be sounding different or a different echo or different background noise, it's because I've moved and I now have hardwood floors instead of carpet. So
you have good acoustics.
I'm not. Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, reminds me of the Big Bang Theory and Sheldon going all different seats in the theater. Ha! Checking the acoustics, good Lord. So, here's the thing. In the last day or so that I've been preparing for us to do this episode, I'm like you. I know nothing. In the past, however long we've been doing this show,
mm-hmm.
in that time, I've watched maybe 1 or 2 different episodes of She-Ra outside of the Sword of She-Ra or Secret of the Sword or whatever else, but I have not. We're both coming into this fresh, folks. This is not us being nostalgic. This is not us wearing red rose glasses or whatever else. So anyone that listens to this and writes a review on iTunes or writes comments on the website, no one can tell us that we're being ruled by nostalgia for She-Ra, Princess of Power, because neither one of us remember anything past Secret of the Sword.
Right.
And as I said earlier, what really surprises me is how much is actually cut out of the 5 episodes to cobble together the movie.
Right.
There's so much here. I remember finding, the episodes at one point or another. And I'm like, wait, that's not how it's. What's that doing there? That's an extra bit. What's going on there?
Right.
And it took us, well, yeah, pretty much. It took you and I 4 years to get through 130 episodes of He-Man. It's not going to take us 4 years to get through 93 episodes of She-Ra.
No, it's going to take much less than that.
Yeah. So, as I already mentioned, Into Etheria starts with a completely different opening sequence, which I believe is done by Alan Oppenheimer. Some places say it's done by Lou Scheimer. The full original title, as seen on the shooting strip, was The Sword of She-Ra, Part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the episode titles Into Etheria, Beast Island, all that stuff. I like for the movie, I like the title He-Man and She-Ra, The Secret of the Sword for the movie version. For the 5 episode parts, I like the title The Sword of She-Ra. I almost wish they would have kept that on the title cards instead of just Into Etheria or Beast Island or whatever.
I can go either way. I mean, it is a pretty long title that way. The Sword of She-Ra Part 1 Into Etheria is a lot. It's a mouthful. But I don't necessarily think it's bad. But I can understand why they would cut it to a shorter version.
Now, had you gone back, and I know you probably weren't wanting to, but had you gone back before this and like after we did the commentary, and had you seen the differences in the episodes?
No, I haven't had a chance to actually watch the specific differences and cuts yet. It's something I will do, obviously, in time, because I want to get ratings for all those individual episodes, kind of on an episodic nature to add to our ratings as we go through the series. But I haven't had a chance to watch the individual cuts yet. But I think probably one of the most interesting things that they changed was that the Horde troopers were originally conceived as living beings instead of robots. And you can kind of get a little of that in this first episode, Into Etheria, because they all have distinctly different voices. And one of them even has a name. They call him Marg. Yep. And it talks about how the script actually even went further, and that all the Horsemen actually had identities and individual traits. And it had a scene where they lift their visors, and one of them is a scarred human, one of them's like a reptilian humanoid, one of them's a humanoid hawk. So it kind of would tie a lot of the different groups of humanoids within Etheria together as all possibilities of being Horde troopers, instead of kind of what we get through the series, which is just kind of some generic faceless robots.
And you would think that because of what happens at the end of like the jailbreak, or when Hordak is like, "Where are my Horde troopers?" and Shadow Weaver's like, "Oh, they're coming back now, and they've even lost one of their. Oh no, here he comes." That's no true. I mean, seriously, that scene, you realize that they were going to go in the way that you're saying about having them be individual people inside the pieces of. It's the only way that scene would make sense.
But then you can't quite tie in as many correlations to Star Wars and the people dressing up as stormtroopers.
No, I know, but I'm saying that because He-Man, like, if we're to believe that the Horde troopers are supposed to be just completely robots all over the place, right. Just no humans, no people, no Pacific Rim, whatever, then how the hell did He-Man get in the damn suit if it's a robot? So that's what I'm saying. It's like, if they had left it to where they showed some of that stuff, yeah, I know they have to cut for time, but I think it would have been interesting to see the.
No, I think it would have definitely added an element instead of just having your generic foot soldiers that can be beaten pretty easily, because they also would have it also would have allowed for some cool storylines to take place where maybe like She-Ra and some of the other good characters possibly could have even had interaction with the Horde trooper and maybe try to bring them back to the good side or understand their story. There could have been multiple storylines out of that. Horde trooper A belongs to this town over here of hawk people or snake people or whatever, and I think they definitely could have had a lot more potential for some interesting plots.
Right. So there's so many different, and I'm kind of glad that they were cut for the the film version because there's so many different sequences that were cut.
A lot of them were inconsequential.
A lot of them were, yeah, like Adam and Bo throwing cream pies into the faces of two of the Horde troopers. Like, yeah, we don't need that for the film.
Right.
Hordak punishes the messenger from Thamor for bringing him bad news. Like, as soon as I saw that in this very first episode, I was like, yeah, no, there's no way that happened in the movie. Let's see here. What was some of the other ones for Into Etheria?
And not many other ones into Etheria that like are meaningful. I mean, it's just little things like this was shot. This shot was a little slightly different. This character faced a different direction. Kind of little inconsequential type things. But I think probably the biggest one for me is that Horde Trooper bit. Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest thing is if and when La La Land Records eventually does put a She-Ra soundtrack score together, if I want to see how they're going to do it, because it says in our notes that the music score for the 5 episodes was completely restructured to make Secret of the Sword to compensate for the numerous cuts to the original 5 episodes. So it's going to be interesting to see if when a full-on She-Ra soundtrack does happen, if it happens, hopefully it will, how they're going to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
For Beast Island, for the 2nd episode, what cuts intrigue you out of this one?
Again, I mean, obviously, all of these are gonna have some inconsequential ones.
True.
Some that maybe that aren't as important. But if I was looking at this one, again, a lot of it goes back to the introductory types of bits. Obviously, in one version, they're trying to keep a lot more secrets about She-Ra's identity. So that's an obvious one that's going to be throughout, as far as trying not to disclose who she is, compared to the point where we all know who she is. I don't know which one struck your fancy. I'll think about this a second.
The thing about the opening intro, this only happened in the first 3 episodes, because by episode 4, that's the standard, my name is Adora, blah blah blah, and I'm not trying to overshadow that by saying blah blah blah,
right.
But I'm just saying that specific intro about the sword of She-Ra and all this, that was only the first 3 episodes, because by the 4th episode, obviously, her identity is revealed. Like I said, I know the title's long, but I think it's more that I like how, and it is Oppenheimer. That other note is incorrect. It is Alan Oppenheimer. I like the way he inflects it, saying the sword of She-Ra,
right,
or whatever. You know what I mean? I like how his vocals are working with that, because that's not him putting on Man-at-Arms. That's not him putting on... Obviously, he can't put on Skeletor. That's just his normal narration voice. And it's very rare for me to hear Alan Oppenheimer... I mean, I've heard him at conventions in the last few years and stuff like that, and his normal voice is very similar to Man-at-Arms. Obviously, Man-at-Arms is a little bit deeper than his regular voice, but I just love hearing that narration voice. As far as the cuts here for Beast Island...
I think I do have one, actually, now that I think about it more. Maybe not necessarily a cut, but a difference that some fans of the Masters of the Universe probably would find somewhat interesting, and that's during the recap at the start of the episode. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit,
right?
But with the footage of He-Man versus Adora from Into Etheria had been altered. So in the recap version, He-Man is seen holding his power sword as he confronts Adora, who is holding the sword of protection.
Right.
But in Into Etheria, she was holding just a nondescript sword, and He-Man had her sword of protection, having lost his own sword earlier. So that's kind of an interesting switch with the swords.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was probably about one of the only ones from Beast Island. I don't know if you had any others you wanted to bring up or not.
I mean, I'm so glad they cut the sheep scene. The last thing we need is Madame Raz turning people into sheep. And Adora witnessing the Horde Trooper taking some kid's horse away. don't get me wrong. I understand that goes to characterization of her watching and really realizing how evil the Horde is. I understand that, but I'm very happy that it was cut from the movie. And this is what I was saying. This is what I've been saying all along between this episode and episode 46. I'm discovering new things about this story by watching the episodes individually.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's the coolest thing, and I still prefer the movie because it's much cleaner than some of this stuff. With She-Ra Unchained, it's episode 3 of the Sword of She-Ra. Let's see here. Some of the scenes that were cut from this one, where Hordak drains the will of the slave in the Magna Beam Charger. Adora had asked him what happens to the prisoners afterward, and Hordak shows her that the rebel has now become a slave with no will of his own. Well, that's not exactly how it happened in the movie. They just got drained. It's almost like they passed out.
Yeah.
I mean, you suck the life energy out of somebody, they're going to die. They're not going to become your undead zombie slave because, let's face it, nobody wants zombies, damn it. Keep your zombies out of my She-Ra.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds so wrong. After entering Doom Tower disguised as a Horde trooper, He-Man takes a moment and wonders how he will find Adora in such a large place.
Yeah.
Like, did he not think... Like, I understand why that was cut, and I'm kind of glad it was, but, I mean, did he not think... What's interesting to me is seeing... Like, sometimes in this, they'll show a scene that we know is in the movie, then they'll show a scene that they had cut out of the movie, and then they'll go back to it, and it's really interesting for me to see kind of, like, where they said, okay, let's take the scissors and start here, and then... take them over here and just whoosh that scene right out of there.
Right.
What about you for this one?
Not as much here. Again, I don't have much for She-Ra Unchained, just like Beast Island. I think there's some interesting ones in the next episode, but yeah, I mean, it's mostly just little stuff or the things that you already talked about.
Yeah.
I do have some from reunions, though.
Okay, we'll talk about that in 1 second.
Okay.
I've never noticed this. And I didn't even notice it because I watched these 5 episodes right before we recorded this because I had to get audio for them. During the transformation into She-Ra with Castle Grayskull in the background, the jaw bridge is missing. I've never noticed that.
Yeah.
In these first 3 episodes. Never noticed that whatsoever. So for reunions, what do you got?
Oh, I mean, I think one of the more interesting ones is that Adam... Number one, having to drag Adora into the royal throne room because she's afraid her parents won't recognize her. I thought that was kind of interesting, as well as the whole thing with Hordak and the rest of Snake Mountain, where Beastman and Trapjaw see Hordak coming on Skeletor's tabletop view screen and alert Skeletor, who's shocked to see him, and obviously orders his men to gather up all the evil warriors they can to stop him from entering.
Was it just me, or by the time we got to this episode and Hordak returned to Eternia and obviously met up with... It seems like there were more evil warriors in this episode or in this movie for Skeletor than in all 130 episodes of the original He-Man cartoon. You had Webstor, you had Cobra Khan, you had Beastman, you had Trapjaw, you had Triclops, you had... thank God Clawful wasn't there, but I mean... you had everybody pretty much that we knew from He-Man, except for Evelyn.
Right.
Who knows where she was? Because obviously they did. I know why Evelyn wasn't used, obviously, because they wanted to put the spotlight on Shadow Weaver.
Yeah.
And since Linda voices both characters, they would essentially sound like they'd be talking to each other. No, I'm serious. I would love someone out there in audio land to put together a clip of Shadow Weaver on the left and Evelyn on the right, and you just show us how similar they... I mean, I know they sound different, but they do sound very similar because obviously it is Linda Gary doing both.
Right.
For me with this one, it's more so... like you said about Adam, like I wish we could have seen that, Uh, but it wouldn't have worked because the sorceress either had already said, I believe, that the only people that ever knew, like she cast a spell on everybody. The only four people that knew were her, Man at Arms, the King, and Queen.
Yeah.
But you would think, okay, so this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this episode, to talk about this very point. If, Anakin and Padme had twins, one of them was stolen, you would think that they would remember. I mean, they do remember, but you would think that at some point, if this is really a continuation of He-Man in lieu of a third season of He-Man, obviously, but, if this is He-Man's twin sister, you would think at some point, I don't know, they probably weren't thinking this far ahead back then. I understand that, but you'd think at some point in any of the He-Man episodes, we saw the Sword of Protection, once?
Yeah.
Very briefly on the side of the castle wall in the inside. So that's what kind of, looking back at this as an episodic event, not the movie version, but the episodic version with this in here. And it's like, you'd think that they would have said something about that before.
Nonsense. Yeah, I know. I understand what you're saying.
I'm just saying, it doesn't, the shock of Marlena, while, it obviously pains me, obviously, it's a shocking moment for her. Oh my God, my daughter, blah, 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 it, I don't know, whatever. So for the Battle of Brightmoon, I wish they would have left this in for the movie, because I wish we could have seen him. But obviously, Madame Raz is essentially the Orko for She-Ra.
Right.
While having dinner with her parents and brother, Adora tells an anecdote about one of Madame Raz's spells misfiring, and Randor mentions that this Madame Raz sounds a lot like our Orko. And Adam explains Orko is visiting his uncle in Tralla at the moment.
Yep, I guess he couldn't be there.
Yeah.
I think the other one's a funny line, too, from She-Ra. Fighting Skeletor's warriors of Snake Mountain, Trapjaw says, I'll stop her, and she replies, all right, that's it. No one around here knows how to treat a lady. So I think that's it. That's an interesting one for sure.
That's the interesting thing between He-Man and She-Ra, between the two series. One is sexist one way, the other is sexist the other way.
Right.
Because the men in She-Ra are meant to all look like wimps. The fact that Bo has to be saved, Bo is essentially the princess in another castle at this point. He becomes that. That's the one. Even though I don't remember the episodes, I do remember Bo needing She-Ra to save him a lot.
Right.
I love the extended scene with Randor, Marlena, and Adora about the discussion on returning to Etheria, and I think that just is so great.
Yeah,
I understand why they had to cut it. Again, it's probably cut for time, but I do really love that. Let's see. Anything else for you on this one?
No, I think we hit most of the major ones. I mean, it's interesting to see the two versions. You definitely notice things that were in one that aren't in the other. Are any of them earth-shattering or things that change your opinion on something? I don't think necessarily. I'm kind of like you. I probably prefer the film version only because of nostalgic reasons, because that's what I remember. But not that there's anything wrong with the episodic versions either. I'm just excited that we're getting into She-Ra episodes now, so that we can start hashing this out and breaking down the episodes and seeing if it stacks up to He-Man, if it's better, if it's worse, if it's on par. What do we got? I'm interested to see. Absolutely. And I have no idea who my favorite or least favorite characters are going to be. I had somewhat of an idea with He-Man because I already knew I didn't like Tila. I already knew I liked Merman and a couple other characters. I mean, I learned about more of them as we went through, as I kind of refreshed my memory, but I have no clue in She-Ra who I like, who I don't like. So it's going to be an episode-by-episode thing.
Yeah. For me, at this point, it's just the characters in the movie that I like.
Gotcha.
I don't like you. I'm coming into this fresh. I mean,
I know there was a toy that I bought my sister for Christmas. this is the most ridiculous story because I was probably like, I don't know, 8, 9, something like that. And my sister liked She-Ra. She was a couple years older than me. And I remember, I got to pick what I got her for Christmas or whatever, and I picked her a She-Ra doll. And we went home and put it in the hall closet. And then, a month later, when it came to time to wrap the presents, it was gone. No, it was gone. And to this day, we have no idea what happened to it. Wow. Like, she didn't get in there and open it early. Nobody, did anything, but it vanished from the face of the earth. And we have cleaned, over the last couple decades, obviously we've had different times where we've cleaned the whole house from top to bottom, not searching for that, but just in general. And we've never come across that doll. If we did, it would be mint in package. So that would be cool. But it was a Frosta, I believe, doll. And so I kind of, I guess, must have liked that character when I was young, if that's the one I picked to buy my sister. But yeah, we still have no idea where that toy ended up.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me with the characters, like, I know most of the names of the other great, like, Castaspella and Frosta.
Right.
But I don't know
what they're like, or if they're annoying, or if they're cool.
No clue. So I'm hoping, as we do this...
go ahead.
It's going to be a journey for all of us, not just you and I. It's going to be a journey for you and I and the listeners, because we're all kind of coming into this fresh. And maybe some of those listeners, like Count Marzo, thankfully he never shows up. Oh, wait, yes, he does show up in this series for one episode, maybe. I think he does. I don't remember. But anyway, maybe Count Marzo, or, hey, maybe even Pixel Dan might even pay attention to this. Who knows? I doubt it. He's too busy. But it's one of those things where maybe any of our listeners who are the diehard She-Ra fans will come to us and say on, like, say, next episode 48, when we do the next 4 episodes of the series, maybe after people listen to that, they'll inform us as to some of these character things that we do not remember, because neither one of us, as I've already said many times in the last 20 minutes or so.
I kind of like that, though. I'm looking forward to
that's
going in with no preconceived notions. The other thing I'm excited about character-wise is, and I tried to avoid this as much as possible when doing our recap episode of the Masters of the Universe series, is discovering which characters that we know from He-Man that never showed up in He-Man, but instead actually had showed up in She-Ra, and we just always kind of connected them with He-Man because they were supposed to be a He-Man character, but they never get used, so then they were left over and they actually end up in the She-Ra series. I know there's a handful of them. I don't remember which ones they are. I know I had at least one of the toys, if not 2 of them, that I kept waiting to see in He-Man, and they never showed up. So I know they show up in She-Ra, and I'm interested to see the rest of those characters that show up in Etheria instead of Eternia.
For me, the only character that I really remember from She-Ra, outside of obviously what we've seen in the movie, and it's the character I hate. This character might be worse than T-Bob, and that's saying a lot. But they got this little imp, and I'm not talking about Hordak's imp. I'm talking about this little imp named Lukey, or Lukey, or Loki, or whatever the frig his name is supposed to be.
Loki is a different character.
Whatever. To give the moral at the end of the story. And it's one of either Erica Scheimer or Lou Scheimer's high-pitched voices. I absolutely hate the sound of his voice. I absolutely find the character so annoying. Like, hey, did you find me today? No, I wasn't looking. You're not friggin' Waldo over there, you dumbass.
It was.
So,
predecessor to Waldo.
Yeah, while I'm on my Lukey rant here, I will say that people might be coming into this series watching the 5 episodes, not the film, but the 5 episodes, and be like, hey, where's the moral? They specifically left it out and didn't start it until episode 6, the Seahawk.
So don't worry, you haven't missed any yet.
Right, because of the fact that it was 5 parts and it was a to be continued.
Right.
So, so we haven't missed anything.
Nope, we'll be bringing all of them to you, letting you know our thoughts on them, and I'm gonna make you like this character by the end of the show.
No, you're not. It's never going to happen. So we're going to take a quick break, come back with the closing of the show and a few other little tidbits. We'll be back after this.
And now, here are some exciting scenes from Chapter 2 of The Sword of She-Ra.
It's Showtime Synergy. The latest review podcast from the GeekCast Radio Network is here. So join TFG1Mike, Nicole Hailstorm, and myself, Lady Rec, as we will be reviewing all 65 episodes of Joe and the Holograms in a 25-episode-long podcast. You can find Showtime Synergy on iTunes and GeekCastRadio.com. We are the truly outrageous podcast that you want to be listening to.
Listen to them, King Randor.
He-Man!
I had a funny feeling he might show up.
Grab your helmets, because it's time to assemble Mask. Mask Mayhem is here with your hosts TFG1Mike, OptimusSolo, and brand new host Toon Master Tim. This podcast, covering all 75 episodes of Mask, will feature in-depth analysis of every episode, talking the toys, and more. Mask Mayhem will run 30 podcast episodes. You can find us on iTunes and www.geekcastradio.com. So get your spectrums ready, as podcasting is the ultimate weapon.
And now, Princess, I must decide what to do with you.
Oh.
She's fainted.
Just like a woman. Take her to the dungeons, Furface. I'll contact Randor and tell him my demands.
You're sure a pretty princess. It's too bad we have to lock you up in the dungeon.
Thanks for the compliment, Fangs.
Huh? You can't do this to me.
Funny, I thought I just did it. Bye now.
Where are we going?
To the lab. Skeletor wants us to run some tests on this sword the princess was carrying.
What for?
Odak seems to think there was something special about it.
That was lucky. Now to even the odds a little bit. For the Honor of Grayskull! I am She-Ra!
Skeletor to King Randor. Skeletor to King Randor. Come in, you royal boob.
It's not nice to call people names.
Who are you, woman?
The name's She-Ra. And you can stop trying to call the king. I've freed the princess.
What? Get her!
My, you boys are forward. Oh, all right. One dance, and that's it. Now you fellows are using your heads.
You nincompoops! Bee brains! I'll take care of her myself! Ha! Missed!
Wait for it, bone brain. That's definitely an improvement to your looks.
Look! She's the one who stole the sword! I'll stop her!
All right, that's it. No one around here knows how to treat a lady.
The throne room is just ahead of us. Let's be careful.
He-Man, look out! What happened to them?
I've got a pretty good idea.
Hello, He-Man. Sorry you missed all the fun.
Who in the world is that?
Tila, Man-at-Arms. This is my friend, She-Ra.
Nice to meet you.
Where's Princess Adora?
She's,
Oh, she's safe.
Right. Safe.
Well, then what are we doing here?
Nothing much. So what say we all leave?
Fine with me.
I don't believe this.
Neither do I! A female He-Man! Oh, this is the worst day of my life!
All right, folks. That's going to do it.
We've set the table for the next adventure.
Yep. It'll be the next 93 episodes. So from episode 46 to 82, I believe. The interesting thing here, folks, is since we haven't rebranded Powers of Grayskull Series, obviously, but we've redone it because it's no longer just going to be 4 separate podcasts. It's going to be 4 podcasts in one podcast. It's going to be 4 podcast series into one just giant podcast. And by the time we finish this, we're going to have 125 total episodes covering everything in the Masters of the Universe history here.
When we do things big.
Yeah. And I can't believe it's been 4 years since we started this damn show. But
the interesting thing, too, is every series is less episodes.
Yes.
So we had, 45 episodes in He-Man. We got 35, and She-Ra, I think 25 maybe in Space Cadets, and then 15, I believe, in the reboot.
Space Cadets.
Or something.
Yeah.
So everyone goes down by the same amount of episodes, just about. So.
I'll tell you guys right now, I'll tell you the listeners right now, in the Myths of Etheria series, in the She-Ra review series, we're going to have 2 very special episodes, episode 50 and episode 75. They're going to break the mold on what we're going to do, because episode 50, we're going to talk about Masters of the Universe toys throughout the generations of the brand. And then in episode 75, we're going to talk about the comics throughout the years. Now, the interesting thing here is, I believe Dark Horse or somebody just released all of the original mini-comics in this giant-ass book. Like, all the original mini-comics from Masters of the Universe back in the day. I don't know if the She-Ra stuff is in there. I'm not looking at any information, folks. So,
right.
If you're listening to this right now and you start to comment on the website or tweet at me or whatever else saying, oh yeah, it's all in there, okay, cool. But just know, when I'm telling you this, I've just seen this in passing, that there is a now giant book out there with every single mini comic that ever was back in the day. So we're going to go over all of that. I haven't told Kevin this yet. We'll discuss this off air. This isn't anything major. But how this is going to fall is we're going to have a little bit of a break in between episode 51 and 52 for the holidays, because episode 52 kind of has to come out right before Christmas of the podcast. So obviously, just to let everybody know, Kevin and I are going to be pre-producing a lot of the podcasts, so that way we can get them out to you guys in a timely fashion. The only time the episode releases we'll probably see a break is around holidays, so like Thanksgiving and Christmas this year, obviously. One thing we need to mention, October 9th, is it September 9th or October? Shit.
Get your shit together.
Yeah, thank you. She-Ra yes, this is the 30th anniversary year, but we just passed the original air date. I think it was last month, September 9th, 1985. 30 years to the day.
So we're almost doing it in the exact same time that it would have been done.
The funny thing is when I was looking this up, the 2 seasons, the 93 episodes, it only lasted from 85 to 86.
Yeah. Yep, fall and winter of 85 would be the one season, and then fall, winter of 86 would be the other.
Yep. So that's what's going on for the She-Ra show here on Myths of Etheria for Powers of Grayskull series.
So those of you that have been waiting for us, we're back. We're coming at you. You don't have to wait anymore, Toon Master Tim.
Yep.
We're bringing new episodes to you so you can dust off your She-Ra set. And that's another thing I'm getting ready to do, because obviously when we went through the He-Man one, I was very carefully screen capping all the characters, etc., and building that page on Behind the Voice Actors to a very full and complete page. And I'll get to do the same thing with She-Ra now, as I capture every single character's image and add them to the database.
So in 2015, folks, we've kind of started in the review podcast area of GeekCast Radio Network, we've kind of started a female revolution. Because I've had Showtime Synergy, the Gem Show, running, and we now have She-Ra. So at some point, we're going to have to do a GCRN Wars where it's Gem versus She-Ra.
Or we can just do all of the female cartoon icons. We can throw a bunch of them in there.
I don't know about all that because some of them are just...
Throw Penny from Inspector Gadget in there.
Oh, no, I know what it was when I...
Strawberry Shortcake and Rainbow Bright.
Yeah, but I remember now why I was thinking Jim versus She-Ra. The GCRN Awards at the end of the year, since Powers of Grayskull won the award last year.
Oh, there we go.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, we have to get a bunch of episodes out of Myths of Etheria to make ourselves eligible and compete for that.
We will. We will.
And it includes
All
me,
right.
so it's probably a shoo-in for the winner.
Ha, funny. Funny guy. Thank you for listening to Myths of Etheria. If you'd like to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show, there are several ways to do so. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on all of our episode posts. Send email to feedback@geekcastradio.com with the subject line, POGS, Myths of Etheria. Leave the show's feedback in iTunes. Please do this. You can also find us on Blog Talk Radio. I will put that link in the show notes. So if you're not an iTunes user, you can find us on blogtalkradio.com as well.
Because we're famous.
Mm-hmm. Follow us on Twitter. The network Twitter is @GeekCastRadio. The show Twitter is Powers of Grayskull. I'm TFG1Mike. What is your Twitter?
The only one that matters, @OptimusSolo.
A giant beep needs to go right there where the whole only
At
one that
OptimusSolo.
matters thing. Yeah. Did you want to pimp out CG as well, or no?
Yeah, I mean, you should listen to a bunch of stuff we have coming up because if you're a fan of any of this stuff from back in the day, you should definitely start listening to GeekCast Radio because we have a ton of fun stuff coming. I'm not going to say what all of them are, but we got stuff that is related to GCRN Wars. We have flagship GCRN episodes that I think you guys are going to like leading up to a little event that might be happening on December 18th. And a few other surprises along the way. So it is a good time to start paying attention to what the GeekCast Radio Network is doing, including listening to Cinema Geeks, my other show.
I meant the Cinema Geeks Twitter, you idiot.
Cinema Geekcast is how you can follow my other Twitter, and that is all about movies and movie news and what's new and what's important in the land of movies. But like I said, pay attention to GeekCast Radio right now.
That's right. Become a fan of us on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/GeekCast Radio Network. Call the voicemail line. Tell us the show you're leaving the message for and your name. 502-526-5821. There is a 5-minute time limit. We hope you enjoyed the Myths today. And don't forget to join us on our next adventure when we'll be moving past the Sword of She-Ra and diving into the series proper. So join us as we'll be discovering the Myths of Etheria and reviewing the next 4 episodes of She-Ra Season 1. Those being The Seahawk, The Red Knight, The Missing Axe, and The Prisoners of Beast Island. For now, I am TFG1Mike with
OptimusSolo. I thought you were going to say Prisoners of Azkaban there for a second.
No.
Okay.
By the power and for the honor of Grayskull, you all have the power.
And the honor.
I already said that.
Listen to them cheer. It's good to hear them so happy.
How about you? Aren't you happy?
Yes and no.
You are not returning to Eternia with me, are you?
I can't. Hordak was right. One battle doesn't win a war. And it's a war Etheria's fighting. I'm needed here, He-Man. At least for now.
I understand. And in a way, I feel maybe things were meant to happen like this. Me becoming He-Man to protect Eternia. You becoming She-Ra to do the same on Etheria.
Yes, I feel that too. I only wish it made things easier. Tell Mother and Father I love them.
I will. Ready to go home, Battle Cat?
Sure, He-Man.
Say goodbye to all my friends here, will you? And if you should ever need my help,
I'll call. And if you ever...
I'll know just who to ask for.
Up, Swift Wind!
Farewell, She-Ra, Princess of Power